Welcome to Kind Curiosity, where we explore those who have the audacity to be kind. My name is Felicia. In this week's episode, we'll dive deeper into kindness in education, which was mentioned during episode 4 of season 1 with Dr. Jeanine Wilson. In episode 1, we mentioned Ruby Bridges. In 1960, at the age of 6, Ruby integrated an all-white elementary school in New Orleans. Let's look at the teacher who had the courage to teach Ruby for an entire year. Barbara Henry had the audacity to be kind in spite of what society wanted her to do. You see, Barbara attended Girls Latin School in Boston. She is quoted as saying, "Where we learn to appreciate and enjoy our important commonalities amid our external differences of class, community, or color." She taught overseas in military schools prior to landing in New Orleans, where she taught a diverse group of students. The superintendent of the New Orleans schools called and offered her a teaching position. Barbara's first question, will it be integrated? She was asked if that would make a difference to her. Barbara said no. Think about the context of this story. Barbara was white. She lived in the South at a time when racial segregation in the United States was challenged. Those who did not want schools to be integrated made their position known. Each day, Ruby was escorted to school by the United States Marshals. She endured racial slurs, death threats, and hate speech. Remember, she was only 6 years old. During one school day, members of the community protested with a doll in a casket. The doll was meant to represent a dead Ruby Bridges. Barbara would report to her class each day with only one student, because other parents pulled their children out of the classroom. For a full year, Barbara tried to take Ruby's mind off the mobs that were stationed outside her school every day, so that Ruby could learn. Ruby was quoted as saying she remembers there were no other children in her classroom. So Ruby had Barbara Henry all to herself for an entire year. Do you think Barbara had the same thought that Dr. Wilson mentioned when she stated, "Children grow up to be adults, while we grow up to be old"? Ironically, Ruby Bridges was born in 1954, which was the same year the Supreme Court reversed the Plessy versus Ferguson decision of separate but equal. The decision of Brown versus Board of Education stated that to separate students on the basis of race was unconstitutional. In 2015, Oprah Winfrey talked with Ruby again about her perspective of that time in her life. Ruby was then 61 years of age. She is quoted as saying, "Barbara Henry showed me her heart." Barbara was ostracized by her fellow educators, all of which refused to teach in a classroom with a Black child. But Barbara had the courage and the audacity to be kind to this little girl that would one day grow up to be an adult. Barbara is quoted as saying, "I could not believe the anger and hostility to what seemed like a normal or right world. I did not care if anyone liked me or didn't like me. I was coming back." In 2021, the Barbara Henry Courage in Teaching Award was founded. It honors teachers who have invoked change through acts of courage in everyday life. Let's take a look at other educators who had the audacity to be kind, because they also know that students grow up to be adults. Marva Collins was an educator in the Chicago public school system from 1959 until she left in 1975. Miss Collins was discouraged by the levels at which her students were learning. She knew they had the potential to be great, and she had the courage to do something about it. She is quoted as saying, "There is no such thing as an unteachable child, and children don't fail, teachers fail." Thus, Westside Preparatory School was created. Marva was tired of seeing Black children labeled as unteachable. She refused deficit-based narratives that stoked discrimination based on a child's color or socioeconomic status. She always told her students they were brilliant before they believed it. The Psy Preparatory Academy charged $5,500 per school year for tuition, with the Chicago public schools budgeting more than twice that amount for an education that was seen as subpar. Marva was nominated twice to be the United States Secretary of Education, first by President Ronald Reagan and again by President George Bush. Each time she refused because she wanted to teach one child at a time. Marva received numerous awards for her classical teaching style, which she based on the Socratic method. This method utilizes argumentative dialogue in which the teacher probes the student on a topic with questions and clarification until the student is pressed to come to a conclusion or admit ignorance of the topic. She was portrayed by Cicely Tyson in the TV movie of her story called The Marva Collins Story. I remember being inspired by that story when I was young. After immigrating to the United States, the late Jamie Escalada taught math to underserved students in East Los Angeles, California. In 1974, he taught calculus at Garfield High School. He challenged his students to master advanced mathematics, and when 18 of his students were accused of cheating because they passed the AP calculus exam, he made them retake the exam, and all 18 passed again. Jamie did not buy the narrative that students he taught would never master such a tough subject or that they were unteachable. The 1988 movie Stand and Deliver tells the story of his remarkable attitude and determination. Jamie displayed acts of kindness towards a group of students that were written off by others, solely due to the place where they laid their head and their skin color. Jamie also received various awards for his contributions in education, one of which included the Presidential Medal of Excellence. He was also inducted into the National Teachers Hall of Fame in 1999. And what about the story of faculty at an elementary school in Kentucky that started a school laundry room because they witnessed some students being bullied because their clothing was dirty or stained? They witnessed students regressing into silence because they were teased. The laundry room idea has been adopted by various schools throughout the country. Educators know that if a child is faced with teasing and bullying, they won't go to school. And if they do show up, they can't be fully present to learn. One school in Kentucky that adopted the program is modifying it to include a backpack for students who need the service, so that the mesh bag they are currently given is not seen by other students, thus identifying them as a student who needs help with laundry. Or what about the story of Aaron Costello, a California educator at John F. Kennedy High School and mental health advocate who created a color-coded mental health check-in chart? This chart and her story were featured on various news outlets, and the idea spread to other schools. Erin uses her teaching platform to destigmatize mental health conversations and share resources that foster supportive learning environments. She was recognized by the California Teachers Association for her impact to her students. She speaks at conferences about the impact of small, consistent, emotional check-ins on children. Now let me add my own story about an educator who had the audacity to be kind to me. While I attended a vocational high school, my histology class won the chance to attend a medical terminology competition in Atlanta, Georgia. I could not afford to go. My family and I lived in public housing, and living each day was a struggle. But quietly, behind the scenes, my histology teacher collected donations from the students and teachers at the school. She never told them who needed the money. She only told them there was a student in need. Right before the deadline, My teacher kept me after class and presented me with the funds to go on the trip. It included money for airfare, my share of the hotel room, and money for food. This event had a tremendous impact on my life. For the first time that I could remember, I was the recipient of kindness at a time in my life when I needed it most. I also remember an educator who was not so kind to me. During my time in middle school, I took a math class with a teacher who had a heavy accent. I had trouble understanding the teacher, thus I was not doing well in the class. I had to endure the teacher calling me stupid, while also being teased because of the clothes that I wore. From that moment forward, I withdrew and no longer wanted to be in that classroom. The Norman Rockwell painting called The Problem We All Live With depicts Ruby Bridges being escorted to school by United States Marshals. On the background wall is written a racial slur and KKK. It also shows tomatoes being thrown at 6-year-old Ruby. Are we still living with that problem today? Do we still have educators who believe that children of a certain color or socioeconomic status don't deserve the same treatment as those who look like them? Education serves as a powerful equalizer, offering children opportunities to overcome poverty and recognize their potential for excellence and productivity, even when societal messages may suggest otherwise. Educators play a pivotal role in facilitating this transformation for each child. A meaningful connection with an educator who acknowledges and values the individual can profoundly influence a child's life trajectory. Reflecting on your own educational experience, do you recall educators who demonstrated exceptional kindness? Or, conversely, those whose actions were particularly harsh? How did that shape the way you moved forward? What impact did it have on you in that particular subject? Did that educator shape who you are today? Educators may never fully know which moment will stay with a child for a lifetime. A word spoken in frustration, a quiet act of generosity, a decision to see potential instead of deficit. But what history keeps teaching us over and over again is this: children grow up to be adults, and the way they are treated while they are learning shapes who they become. Kindness in education is not sentimental, it is consequential. It determines confidence, curiosity, and courage. So as we reflect on these stories, from Ruby Bridges to Marva Collins, from Jamie Escalada to the teachers who quietly meet students' basic needs, the question isn't whether kindness matters. The question is whether we have the audacity to practice it when it's inconvenient, unpopular, or unseen. Because the legacy of an educator is not measured by lesson plans or test scores alone. It's measured by the lives they helped shape when it mattered most. And this is where audacity comes in. Every educator that I talked about today made a choice that went against the current of their time. Barbara Henry walked into a classroom no one would enter. Marva Collins rejected a system that labeled children as failures. Jamie Escalada refused to accept lowered expectations. Others noticed hunger, shame, silence, or fear, and responded with humanity instead of indifference. None of these acts were safe. None were popular, but they were necessary. To have the audacity to be kind is to act anyway, to teach anyway, to care anyway, knowing that what you do today may quietly shape the adult someone becomes tomorrow. I'm Felicia. Thank you for listening. If this episode resonated with you, please leave a comment, like, and subscribe. Until next time, please have the courage to be curious and have the audacity to be kind.